First of all, thank you for your kind words about my work. In my the migration issue, between migration and remittance is one of my favorite topics. And today I'm going to represent you. I will try to represent you both sides of the remittance, both economic and social one. So let's start. When we talk about remittance, we often assume that remittance is only the economic remittance, that the money the migrants transfer to their households. However, there is also the social side of the issue. When the labor migrants often, when they live for an extended period of time abroad, they often gather ideas, they are exposed to the culture of the society, and they learn habits, work experience, and when they return or when they are visiting to their home countries, they often transmit their ideas, as we can say, as social capital. They can transfer their social capital and sign with their economic capital. So in one of my work, sideline project, I'm also writing about the importance of social remittance. The term is quite new, I could say, that it was coined only in 2000. However, the economic side of the issue became popular around 80s, while the studies about it started in 60s. So the term was coined by the Peggy Levitt. She is writing about this almost more than a decade. And at first she formalized and harmonized all these intangible transfers of values, experience and behaviors under the term of social remittance. Of course, like many other researchers, I will also touch upon the economic side and spend large part of my presentation on the economic side too. And I will represent some figures for you as an illustrative figures. When we talk about remittance, especially Central Asian labor migrants, they spend around $300 to $400 per month to their families. If you take it individually, it's basically not an important sum in macro level. However, when we combine them globally, they constitute a huge amount. As you can see, in 2015, labor migrants around the world sent 600 billion to their home countries, and among them 441 billion was sent to developing countries. In order to illustrate the vastness of this, I put the second sentence saying that this amount is actually 3 times higher than global foreign aid that all countries spent in 2015. And if we consider remittance as a nation, and its GDP will be the 21st largest GDP in the world. So every year, labor migrants sending that amount of money to their households. And when we look at Central Asia, we can see that in 2016, total amount was around 3.4 billion. Although it is approximately 0.5% of the total amount, but their value for the home country economy is quite large, because when we compare the sent remittance money according to their GDP, the equivalence ratio is for Kyrgyzstan 30%, for Tajikistan 26.9%, for Uzbekistan 3.5%. Although the measures were, I would say, quite higher previous years, but due to depreciation in dollar value, the ratios went down. Especially for Tajikistan, 3 years ago we were talking about something like 50%. It was a psychological threshold for them too, but thanks to dollarization, they don't have to cross this threshold. And when we look at the earnings, individual earnings of the Central Asian migrants, when I say Central Asian migrants, I have to point out that these are mostly, I would say 95% of them are from Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan. Because from Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan, not so many people goes to Russia, not so many people go outside for a seasonal job. When we look at the surveys and other works, we see that labor migrants who are working in Russia, Central Asian ones, sends their home approximately 30 or 50% of their earnings. So let's say if they are earning $1,000, they're sending $300 to $500 to their home. And among this amount, 60 to 65% of these sums are spent on daily consumption by their families. So we can see the necessity of going abroad from even this sentence to because due to insufficient number of works, due to insufficient number of decent paid works, many Central Asian labor migrants had to migrate abroad, where Russia is, I would say, not ideal, but a really good place because due to the free regime, higher salaries, the language, common language, Russian, so there is no language barrier. So due to this reason, they often go to Russia. And when we look at the approximate amount, we see, as I mentioned, around 300 or 400. However, it depends on labor migrants too, because it may vary from $100 to $2,000 per month. In here, I gathered some information in order to illustrate for you the migrant profile, who they are, in what sector they are working, and in what regions in Russia they are working at. Although the figures show 2014, the figures does not change so much according to years. And when we look at the Russian statistics, we usually obtain statistics from labor and employment statistics, and these statistics often published once in every 2 years. So they publish in 2013, 15, and 17, approximately end of the year. So when we look at the gathered info from 2015 book that for 2014, we can see that for occupation distribution, they give approximately 930,000 persons. So this pie consists from 900,000 persons who are employed by Russian employers, entrepreneurs in 2014. And when we look at the distribution, we see that wholesale, repair, and construction takes large part. For Russia and for Russian labor market, for them it's easier to hire cheap labor, especially coming from Central Asia. And when we look at their sector distribution, statistics often show that they work in service sector, trade sector, and construction. Other sectors, of course, they also work in different sectors like manufacturing, fishing, agriculture, but their share is more or less smaller than these top three. And when we look at the regional distribution, of course, the central part of Russia and northwestern part of Russia consists of a large amount. When you can see the blue bar is central part, and I specifically put city of Moscow additionally, which included in the central because due to increased importance. You can see that the only city of Moscow attracts more migrants than all except northwestern part of Russia. This is due to, of course, related with the salaries and the demand for cheap labor. According to Russian statistics for 2015-2016, the national level of income is around 27,000 rubles, which equals around $500 per average. However, when we look at the average salary in Moscow, it's almost double. And for St. Petersburg, it is a little higher. So it's logical for them to choose to go to Russia and search the opportunities over there. And when we look at the gender distribution, we see that majority of them are male, 85% of them male, 50% of them female. And among them, when we look at the age distribution, we see that 36% is the highest percent. We can say that 1/3 of them are young people, which we can categorize between 18 to 26. And when we look at the remittance amount and its dynamics, the statistics often describe there in dollar value. However, the dollar value in some cases might not represent the full picture. That's why there was also a comment from my previous seminars in here that saying that purchasing power parity calculation will be more valid because the dollar value in Russia, dollar value in Central Asia might be different. With taking some help from my economist colleagues, I calculated this graph a while ago, and for this seminar I updated my figures. As you can see, the data taken from World Bank, and according to World Bank, it's been said that dollar value in Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan is significantly higher. And most of the labor migrants, approximately more than 90% of them, are tend to convert their salaries into dollar because they are, most of them receive their salaries in ruble, then they convert into dollar. Afterwards, they stand in terms of dollar. And when the families receive this money in dollar, they also convert to their local currencies. You can see that after 2015, after 2014, there was a significant drop. There are a number of reasons for that. First of all, the economic slowdown in Russia, tightened laws in Russia in 2015. If you heard, there was a change in global migration. They changed 11 rules. According to that, the price of the patent, which was replaced the old system of quota, has increased, especially for Moscow, 3 times. For other regions, 26 federal region in Russia actually removed this quota because, according to this regulation, the price setting authority was given to the local authorities. So every district, every oblast set their own prices. Therefore, the Moscow price goes to 4,000 at first. Right now, as far as I know, it's around 4,400 ruble, which is 3 times higher from the national level, which was 1,200 ruble. In terms of legal perspective, it's quite liberating one, but it works only for the labor migrants who actually earn good money, because raising the amount is actually became a burden for the labor migrants whose average salary is much lower than others. When we calculated it, equals around, in order to obtain a work permit in Russia, it will cost you around $900 per year, all which includes the price of the patent, all these necessary documents, tests, medical certificates included. And this is approximately 2 months salary for a low-paid labor migrant. Therefore, in terms of this, in terms of the remittance amount, of course, if they are continuing to work legally, they have to send much less amount because they are paying the higher prices. They are facing with the economic difficulties in labor market, and so on. And here is another statistic which I found in 2016. This is the statistic comes from a report in World Bank, which I time used. This is actually quite, I would say, self-explanatory statistic because it shows that there is a really strong correlation between oil prices and remittance amount. And we look at the Russia remittance amount, as you can see, the purple line and the gray line, they almost goes up and down around the same times. However, when we look at another oil exporting country, the Gulf region, the Gulf Cooperation, and their remittance statistics, we see that their statistics are actually not affected from the oil prices. And it actually went up since 2006 and still continuing to going up. Of course, there are a number of reasons for that. Some of them are working in non-oil sector, and even though some of them are working in oil sector, government provides a large amount of, especially Saudi Arabia provides large amount of subsidies to these firms, to these organizations, in order to keep salaries at the one level. However, in Russia, there is no such subsidization program. Therefore, when the price goes up, remittance goes down. When the price goes down, remittance goes down. And this is another factor which I mentioned, root factor for economic slowdown in Russia. In terms of transfer cost, globally there's a problem, but for Russia, we can say there's a problem. I will touch upon here. In remittances, the transfer cost is quite high. According to Millennium Development Goals, it should be around 3%. So they could send easily their home through a banking system, because in Central Asian case we also see that not all of them are sending their home their money through the ATMs, through a banking system. Some of them are just sent through relatives, some people they know which were returning home, and therefore I calculated this some while ago, and according to statistics taken from World Bank, it is said that the average transfer cost for G8 countries is around 7.4%, which actually reduced from almost 10% in 10 years. However, the experts say that this drop rate is not fast enough. It should be dropped even lower. And when we look at here, you can see different countries have different ratings, and you can see the Russia at the bottom. The Russian rate is around 3%, which is around the Millennium Development Goals, so we can say that they reached the goal. However, what keeps other countries and other banks not dropping the same amount is their concern about money laundering. If they drop the rate, they fear that the money laundering amount will increase. Therefore, they are keeping the rate higher, and they're reducing only gradually throughout the years. Well, this is the most of the part of my presentation, which was about economic remittance part. However, as I say here, labor migrants don't only transfer money; they also transfer ideas, values, and their experiences. And this is also part of from my project, and some of my first preliminary conclusions will come later too. And the term indicates that when a labor migrant in, let's say, Russia, works in a mechanic factory, let's say for 10 years, when you return back home, you return with this experience. And if you assume he finds a job in the same technological level factory, he could easily remit his own experiences which he gathered in Russia. From this point of view, the social capital flow should be significant, because millions of Central Asians are going back and forward every year. However, there is a number of obstacles which stand in the doorway. Some of them are the technological difference between Russia and their home country or hometown. Let's say a labor migrant who get out from a village in Tajikistan or work in some high advanced factory in Russia and return back to his home. For him, it will be difficult to find a job which matches his own skill. Another point is that switching between jobs. In some cases, as I will mention in here, in some cases, labor migrants who work in different occupations in their hometown could work in different occupations in Russia. In this example, on the third one, I mentioned that teacher in Tajikistan, he works as a teacher in Tajikistan, but during the summertime, when the demand which is big. He frequently goes to Russia to work in construction sector because most of the time there is a demand for cheap labor and construction in trade sector. Therefore, in summertime, especially when their school is closed, they go to Russia, work in construction, other sectors, earn some higher salaries and return back. Of course, his learned experience in construction cannot be used in Tajikistan because he works as a teacher in Tajikistan. So we see that loss of social capital over there. Another case, in first case, we can see that another case from Tajikistan, this is also from Tajikistan. The international organizations like to do lots of service about Tajikistan and some portion about Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, but nothing about Uzbekistan. So most of the cases we look at Tajik cases. In his case, he is a trader who worked in trade sector in Tajikistan. He migrated to Russia and stayed over there approximately 10 years and gathered his financial capital, social capital, and said it's time to return home and open his job in Tajikistan and happily working, as far as we know. In this case, we see that many labor migrants use Russia as an opportunity to live up their social and economic status. By working over there, they provide first economic support to their families. Second, if they work hard enough and if they earn well enough, they could even level up their socioeconomic status too. They can open their business, which they can probably couldn't do if they stay in Tajikistan with their own salary. So in my presentation and my sideline project, for social capital, I come to a preliminary conclusion that there's a great potential for entrepreneurial activities in trade and construction sector because most of the time are working in these sectors. So their social capital and economic capital could be transferred in a more efficient way if the bureaucratic obstacles and other certain obstacles will be removed, and if the switching between jobs, if it could be less, they could benefit in large amount. This is all I have to say. If you have any questions.